Alright, you finally installed Linux. You're looking at this rather sexy desktop and your first thought is, okay, and now what? So you try to do something basic, such as install a program. You download the Microsoft Edge installer and it simply doesn't run. But I'm here to tell you it's not Linux's fault. It's your old Windows mentality. I'm Oscar, the super user, and today we will be doing open brain surgery on you to rewire your Windows habits into Linux habits. Almost every single person who jumped from Windows to Linux hits this same wall of frustration. It isn't a failure of the operating system, and it's definitely not a failure on your part. It's just a collision of two totally different ways of thinking. Almost everyone grows up learning Windows and getting used to the Windows way of doing things. But Linux is different. The biggest problem isn't learning the new ways, it's actually unlearning the old. For years, you've built up this muscle memory for how a computer is supposed to feel and act, but I promise that you too will build up the same kind of intuition, but for Linux. If you're willing to stick around, of course. And we'll begin with the biggest mind shift all Windows users go through. The software scavenger hunt. The first and, in my opinion, most jarring habit you absolutely must break is what I call the software scavenger hunt. In the Windows world, when you want a program, you open your web browser, Google it, visit some website that may or may not be sketchy, you dance around a few of those giant flashing download now ads, and you grab an exe file. Then you click on next a few times, all while praying you didn't accidentally agree to install 3 browser toolbars and a crypto miner. The whole process feels normal for you, but let me tell you that as a Linux user, I'm choking at the thought of how cumbersome it really is. In Linux, we handle software differently. We use the almighty package manager. God, it feels so good to even say it. Think of a package manager like a massive, system-wide, trusted app store. It finds the software, installs it, while solving its dependencies, and even updates everything for you, all from one spot. It is also much safer too because every Linux distribution has something called repositories, where the software lives and the people who maintain the distribution check and approve the software that goes in. So most Linux distros today come with a graphical software center, and that's the best place to start. You open it, search for VLC or GIMP, you click install, and that's it. The system handles the rest perfectly fine. But the real power, as you'll soon find out, is in the command line. On a system like Ubuntu, you just open a terminal and type sudo apt install VLC. On Fedora, it's sudo dnf install VLC. That one little command securely downloads and installs the program and everything it needs. It just works. Better yet, if you know the name of several packages you want to install, you can string them up, such as sudo apt install VLC, OBS-Studio, Steam, GIMP, Blender, and you will install all those apps in one go. Imagine installing them in Windows, and that brings us to other types of packages. You've also got universal formats like Flatpak and Snap packages. These are designed to run on pretty much any Linux distro and come with all their dependencies packed inside, which is great. Platforms like FlatHub are a huge repository for thousands of these apps, while Ubuntu and its flavors already come with Snap included. So here's the deal. When you need a program, stop by your distro's app store. If you can't find it there, head over to FlatHub. Once you get comfortable, you can even leverage the speed and power of the terminal. Oh, and about that, fearing the terminal. Here we have a big one. Terminalophobia. For a lot of Windows users, the command line is this scary black box you only open when some tutorial makes you copy-paste a cryptic command. The command prompt and PowerShell are often seen as these ancient relics for elite hackers or sysadmins. So when someone says that the terminal is an essential tool in Linux, it's natural to kind of retreat into your shell. Pun not intended. To be fair, the command line is losing its protagonism greatly nowadays. There are many things you can do entirely with GUIs or graphical user interfaces. But at some point, I do recommend learning terminal because you can do the most wonderful things with it. I would say to start small. Like if you're on a fresh install of Fedora, why don't you try importing the RPM Fusion repositories by using the terminal commands that they give you on the website? Way faster than downloading the package. And like we just saw in our first point, installing software with a terminal is lightning fast. Updating your entire system, all your apps, all your drivers is often just one command, sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade. Compare that to the pain of opening every single Windows app to check for updates or navigating the clunky Windows update settings. The terminal is not there to make your life harder. It's there to make it easier. It gives you a level of precision and speed that a GUI just can't match. The new habit is to not be afraid of it. When a tutorial gives you a command, take a second to see what it's doing. Slowly, you'll start to recognize the patterns, and before you know it, you'll be reaching for the terminal, not because you have to, but because it's the quickest way to get things done. And it's beautiful, you have to admit. Try installing and running CMatrix. That's the terminal app that won me over. The driver scavenger hunt. Hang on, are you still looking for random executables online? What did I tell you? What if I told you that you don't even have to look for drivers? Most of the time. You see, the vast majority of hardware drivers already come bundled in the Linux kernel. That means that they already come included in your Linux distribution. How crazy is that? The kernel is the core of the operating system, and it comes packed with those open source drivers for a massive range of hardware. This means when you install Linux, there's a huge chance that your graphics card, Wi-Fi, sound card, printers, all of it will work right out of the box. No hunting required. The open source drivers for AMD and Intel graphics, for instance, are built right in and they are excellent. The big exception here is usually NVIDIA graphics card and some specific Wi-Fi chips and printer brands like HP. But even then, the process is nothing like the Windows way. You don't go to a website. Instead, your distro gives you a simple tool. On Ubuntu, there's an app called Additional Drivers. You open it, it scans your system, and it will tell you if there's a proprietary driver available. You just select it, click Apply, and the system does the rest. It's glorious. This whole approach is more secure, more stable, and way less frustrating. Where's the C drive? In Windows, everything is stored within lettered drives. You've got your C drive, maybe a D drive for your Steam library, an E drive for a USB stick. Everything has its own little container, and you navigate with backslashes like C, /users, /your name, /documents. This is so fundamental to Windows that new Linux users feel completely lost when they see the Linux file system. There are no drive letters. There's just one single unified tree starting from the /. This is the root directory. Breaking this drive letter mindset is crucial. On Linux, everything lives under this single root. You plug in a USB drive and it doesn't become the F drive. Instead, it gets mounted into a folder. It's just another branch on the same tree. Instead of C program files are split into standard locations. Executables often go in user bin, libraries go in user lib, and system-wide configs in etc. Your personal files aren't in C users, they're in home, your username. This structure is super organized and consistent across pretty much all Linux distros. At first, it can feel confusing, but it's incredibly logical once it clicks. You don't have to wonder what drive something is on, you just need to know its place in the directory structure. And navigation uses // instead of backslashes, which I believe are superior and more aesthetic. Rebooting to fix everything. This last habit is almost a cultural reflex. Is your system slow? Reboot. An app crashed? Reboot. Have you tried turning it off and on again? I know I give that advice a lot to coworkers when their Windows machines are not functioning properly. On Windows, a reboot is often needed because files get locked when they're in use, and many system changes need a full restart to apply. On Linux, this habit is almost entirely unnecessary. Linux was built from the ground up for stability and uptime. The servers that run most of the internet are on Linux after all. This stability comes from its design. First, Linux generally doesn't lock files that are in use, so you can update or replace parts of a running program without restarting the whole operating system. Second, it's really modular. If an application freezes, you can almost always kill that single process without it taking down anything else. If your desktop environment gets weird, you can often restart just the graphical part in seconds. Rebooting should be your absolute last resort, not your first instinct. The only times you really need to reboot are after a kernel update or maybe a major graphics driver update. For everything else, there's almost always a faster, more targeted solution. Learning to restart services instead of the whole machine is a huge step toward thinking like a Linux user. So there you have it. Switching to Linux is a journey. It's okay if it feels strange at first. You're fundamentally rewiring years of muscle memory. But if you make a real effort to break these old habits and embrace the Linux way, you'll find an operating system that's not only more stable and powerful, but in my opinion, a real treat to master. Oh, a final bonus habit is that you should also remember that as a super user, you have great power, but that it also comes with great responsibility.